All right, thank you everyone for joining us today for another one of Music Forward's industry session. I am DeMarco White, and I'm the Institutional Partnerships Manager for Music Forward. For those of you who don't know or who are joining us for the first time, Music Forward is a national nonprofit organization inside the House of Blues and Live Nation family. And our mission is to transform young lives, inspire careers, and champion a more inclusive music industry. We provide artist development and career development programs for youth to inspire the next generation of leaders and innovators. So we welcome all the young people in our audience today, and we are excited for you to hear from our industry professionals on today's call. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We encourage you to ask questions to our panelists. If you enter your question into our Q&A space, we'll go ahead and ask them throughout the conversation. Also, at the end of the session, you'll be prompted to complete a survey where we'd love to get your feedback and learn more about your interest to plan future sessions like today. So just go ahead and enter your information, name and email, and hear more about upcoming opportunities. Before we enter today's session, I just want to say that we here at Music Forward are committed to working today and every day to uproot systematic racism and to increase opportunity and access for our constituents. We acknowledge everything that's sort of going on in our world today and are very mindful and want to create programming and opportunity for our young people to continue to uplift them. Today's conversation has been created to celebrate the Black Trailblazers in music. And I'm very happy and actually honored to have the opportunity to curate such an amazing space where we can discuss and learn more about not only Black music, but our culture and those who are a part of it and who have helped and worked to build it. So with that said, Erika, I want to start with you and sort of introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Cool. Thank you, DeMarco. My name is Erika Lewis. I am co-founder of a DJ event called Grits and Biscuits that has been touring around the country for 10 years now, though we're currently at a stop position because of COVID. But that has been a labor of love, as I said, for the past decade. Myself and my two business partners we're three Southerners living in Brooklyn, New York, when we came up with the idea of celebrating Southern hip hop in the city, and it's just kind of gone around the country since then. I also most recently worked at Live Nation in their brand partnerships or media and sponsorship division, working with brands, doing marketing strategies, and really just kind of helping to get facilitate a deeper understanding of what's happening in culture and opportunities to show up in culture in an authentic way.
Thank you. All right, Darion.
Yes, sir.
Introduce yourself.
Sorry, man. My name is Darren Javon. I am from East Orange, New Jersey.
Hey.
Hey, somebody say hey. I am a young musician, play several different instruments. I'm a musical director for several different artists such as Tinashe and Neo, just to name a couple of the ones I've been working with consistently over the last couple of years. Had a chance to finally move myself from the East Coast to the West Coast. So over the last year or so, I've been adjusting to the LA life and just getting my feet wet now into furthering my brand, my production team, working on some TV and film opportunities with Tyler Perry and Lionsgate, and now transitioning into acting later on this year and stuff like that. So just creative, man, young creative, and, you know, blessed to have opportunities like this to be able to meet with people like you guys and share this platform. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Chris.
Yeah, for sure. I am Christopher Kai Williams, originally from New Orleans, currently a product manager at Columbia Records. And I think in this vein, I kind of look to, just dig into the artist of DNA, focus on, development. What are we saying to our communities, connecting our artists to culture, and also just making sure we're marketing Black music correctly.
Thank you. And last but not least, or at least, yeah.
I am Antonique Smith. I am also from East Orange, New Jersey. Hey.
Oh, what's up?
And that's crazy. And I am a Grammy nominated singer, artist. And I'm most known as a film, television, and Broadway actress. People have known me mostly as Faith Evans in the movie Notorious. And I played Mimi and Rhett on Broadway. And so, and I'm an activist. I actually use my voice and my art to, try to affect change around here. Lord, change. I feel hopeful that change is coming too.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like this conversation is going to take a lot of twists and turns, and we're going to talk about Black music and what that means to us. We're going to talk about that its effect on culture, and then also talk about sort of as we talk about our careers, what has been our experience in the industry, and what do we see and how can we affect change, to Anthony's point, with everything going on. So with all that said, Anthony, let's start with you. And what is Black music to you? When you hear that phrase, what comes to mind? What words are on your heart?
Black music is everything.
Yes.
That's what comes to mind. All genres, we have affected everything. Lil Richard just passed away recently, and I always love to hear him talk about how he was the originator and the orator, and because so many times in history, white people have taken credit for certain things that we started. And so, Black music is everything. I mean, I don't care what style of music it is. When we put our soul into it,
it turns into something else.
It changes into something else, and something more incredible, and something more passionate. And I mean, we really elevate all things.
Yeah. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think, to me, it just kind of sets the standard for all of our culture. Like you were saying, Antonique, there's really no music without Black music if you really think about it. And I think I can just drop the mic right there and just, say that, because we've influenced every genre so much. Think about rock and roll, you think about pop, all of that stuff. It's just like the bare bones of it and the framework and DNA of it is Black music.
Yeah.
I'm always curious, because we've all grown up, right? And I think everyone can remember their introduction into music, and who was that sort of one artist or that one album that was like, this is it, this is music, and you just go down that rabbit hole. And Erika, I'm wondering, who was that artist for you?
Yeah. I'm gonna give two. For me, I have very vivid memories of Stevie Wonder's music in the house with my mother dancing around, and my dad just watching my sister, my mom, and I dancing around. And I have very vivid memories of the Thriller album.
Yes.
And both of those are just part of the soundtrack, I think, of my upbringing. My mother says that the day she brought me home from the hospital, she danced around listening to Isn't She Lovely? So I feel like from day one, it's just, even I want to add to the earlier question, like Black music is just nourishment. Like it is, the nourishment for every pain, every joy, every, triumph, every success, every sorrow, like everything. It is, you can go to Black music and it will soothe you.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because even as someone on the younger side, right? We're all young and vibrant here. But it was for me. It was actually Janet Jackson's "All for You" album that I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're going. And it's been so interesting as I've gotten older, like, to sort of retroactively go back and listen to everything and see the influence it's had on our music for so long, and taking it back to Aretha and Etta, and even the instrumentalists from Duke, and it's so interesting to sort of have music teach us this lesson that we wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. DJ, what about you? Who was that artist or those artists where you were like, this is Black music?
Yeah, it's kind of, it varies for me, because I grew up in church. My father's a pastor. So when I was about 7 to 8 years old, my dad started pastoring. And long before that, I picked up the sticks at like 2 years old. Wow. They found out I had rhythm, you know what I'm saying? And so I've always kind of been from birth just connected to whatever was playing in the house, which was at the time a lot of gospel music, but my dad is from the Bronx, New York, and he's like, him and my mother are completely opposite, you know what I'm saying? My dad is very, the shy lights, the stylistics, you know what I'm saying, the Four Tops, the Delphonics, you know, he was really with that Motown vibe. And my mother was listening to like the Beach Boys, you know, but the one thing they had in common was like gospel music, Fred Hammond. I grew up on a lot of Kirk Franklin, Dietrich Haddon. So gospel had a humongous influence in my life. But I think for me, the turning point as an individual was Brandy's Full Moon album. That's kind of, that for me was like, okay, I want to do this, you know what I'm saying, for the rest of my life. Man, like, her, and rest in peace, LaShawn Daniels, who is, you know, well, yeah, I still say is, man, even though he's not here anymore, was a humongous mentor for me. I used to work under Rodney Jerkins for a little while. And so the Brandy Full Moon project, I think, kind of cultivated and shaped my production lifestyle, you know? And so, yeah, man, but when we, you didn't ask me, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I think it all does tie in, like Erika said. When I think back to what has influenced me the most, it speaks to what Black music is to me. You know, it's a vibe, man. It's honest, it's raw, it's unapologetic, it's always soulful. Doesn't matter what genre we're in, and it's just powerful, man. It has the ability to take over your soul and your spirit. It has the ability to uplift you when you're down. It caters to every mood, like Erika said. You know what I'm saying? Like Miss Smith said. You know, it's everything.
Yeah, thank you.
And I kind of want to touch on what you just said, DJ, about that Brandy album. I think I listen to music today, and I'm like, yo, this wouldn't be this without Full Moon, just because you think about the layers and the harmonies and the stacks and what LaShawn and Rodney did. Like, that was a masterpiece, you know. And I think I still listen to that album today, and I'm like, yo, this still sounds like it's ahead of its time. It doesn't even sound like anything right now. Right. And I think it's really underserved in our community a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's the blueprint right there.
I feel like everyone right now in the audience is just downloading the album. It's going to change everyone's life.
For me, it Mary's My Life album.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Something about 100%. That album.
Something about Mary in general.
Like it brings back like a whole time for me.
Right, right.
As a singer, though, it was Whitney and Aretha. But something about that Mary was almost part of like the identities. Like me as a girl from the hood, it spoke to me so much. Yeah, that's mine.
I love it, and it's always interesting because there's this conversation about I don't want to say it's a versus conversation, but it's music and culture and how they influence one another. And Antonique, sticking with you, like, how do you see music and culture intersecting, specifically our culture?
Oh man, I mean, it's completely weaved in because a lot of us talk about what we're going through, and even if you think back to the music that we all heard growing up, that our parents even listened to. Right. You know, the Marvin Gaye's What's Going On and Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder. Like there was Aretha Franklin had a bunch of them too. And because we are talking about what's happening in our life, it is we are speaking of our culture in our music. We're talking about the injustices. We're talking about like Erika was saying, the joys, the pains, the successes, the everything about our experience as Black people has been in our music. And then at the same time, some people at certain times, I'm trying to think of an example, were a little ahead of the curve where they influenced the culture. I'm trying to think of a good example. Somebody help me with that. Who put out something that then influenced culture?
Man,
the Marvin Gaye "What's Going On" album.
Right, yeah, totally.
I'm gonna say Miss Education of Lauryn Hill as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Those are really good examples. Yep.
Oh, Lord.
So it goes hand in hand. It's like they feed off of each other. The culture feeds what we put out, and then also what we put out changes and leads the culture.
Yeah. It's always interesting because I know I'm gonna try to set this up and then and see where we can take it. It's interesting because I know when an album comes out, specifically by a Black artist, where I'm like, I cannot wait to hear this with my people. I'm ready to go to the club, and we all have been in spaces where that song comes on, and it seems like we have all been in the same dance class, the same rehearsal,
Yeah, right.
It's such this euphoric moment that we are all aligned in this way, no matter what's going on in the world. And I remember when I experienced it the first time as a young person or as a child, and now in my late 20s. I don't know, I keep referencing my age for some reason, but it's been such monumental moments that bring tears to my eyes. And Erika, as a curator of this space, I just want you to share sort of, one, how you identify the need to create it, but then also to sustain and build it and so on and so forth.
I think the need came out of what I think a lot of culture, especially in our community, comes out of just like what you want for yourself. Right. You know what I mean? I think we're just such a giving, we're just givers, I think, by nature. And,
right.
and so for us, as I mentioned before we started this conversation, like, or at the beginning of the conversation, like, we were three Southerners living in Brooklyn. And at the time, this is 2010, you didn't hear a lot of Southern hip hop, you know, and we all went to HBCUs. That's important to point out as well. And so we didn't hear a lot of, you know, Southern hip hop in New York City. And a lot of the parties were like Velvet Ropes and clubs and bottle service. Mm-hmm. And we just said, you know what if we just threw a party that we would want to go to? The first party, it was $5 the first hour, just like back in college, mm-hmm. you know, a party where there's no dress code, a party where it's purely about, you know, just getting, you know, reminiscing and just dancing. And to your point earlier, DeMarco, about, you know, there's just certain songs that feels like we were all at the same, you know, point. Like, we've been doing this party for 10 years. People have aged out of Grits and Biscuits. Right. And then the new wave comes in, and it's surprising how many people it's their first party, you know, 10 years later. But then when If You Buck comes on, everybody knows what to do.
Yeah, brings you right back.
I mean?
And you don't remember where you learned the song. You also don't remember where you learned the song at all.
Exactly.
Like,
if Down for My comes on, everybody knows what to do.
Yes,
if the Surf comes on, everybody, you know, even now we even get to the point where we're like, we'll take it to a cookout and we'll play Electric Slide. Yeah. You know, my parents who have been to Grits and Biscuits will jump out for the Electric Slide. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows what to do, because it's just, I think there's certain things when it comes to the culture that, you know, because we're just giving, it's not exclusive to one generation. Right. It's like, you know, this was food for my soul, so it's important that I raise my kids right, and it's food for their soul too. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's so easy just to kind of continue. But to the point of the original question, like, it really just came down to creating something that we thought we needed, and then found out there were a lot of other people that felt the exact same way and maybe didn't even know they needed it until they stepped foot into it.
Yeah. Chris, do you have anything that you want to share around sort of even just being a part of those spaces or being able to contribute to them, or your necessity in needing to go to them?
Yeah, 100%. First, I kind of want to touch on what Erika just said as well about, you know, I also am an HBCU graduate from the South, from New Orleans, obviously. And I think, you know, I love how it's like any BET weekend or any Essence Fest weekend, you know, there's always like that Grits and Biscuits, or that's something that can reunite us and bring us back together, especially as an industry and just as people, because it's like, you know, I'll go to these parties like, yo, this just feels like a reunion. And, you know, like you said, living in New York, being in the weeds of certain things in the industry, we don't get that. And then, so to answer your question, DeMarco, I think, you know, spaces like that are like so necessary for us just to continue to, you know, push forward as a young, creative culture that wants to also show our experiences and other things we're doing, rather it be music, rather it be television, rather it be film. I think it's still necessary for us to still have that momentum and that energy. So I think, you know, to me, it's almost impossible. To me, music and culture are like the same thing almost. It's one and the same. You think about fashion, sports, TV, all of that, like there's a music component to everything, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the theme that has been sort of talked about in this conversation thus far is that when we talk about music or we talk about culture, there has always been this need to talk about what's going on in the world and sort of the social justice that's embedded in who we are as people. And I want to take our conversation to the direction of sort of using platforms for advocacy and how do each of you use your platforms for advocacy? And Antonique, we'll start with you since you mentioned earlier that is ingrained in who you are.
Mostly recently in the last maybe 5 years or so, it's been environmental justice. What's on.
Come closer to the mic. We can't really.
Oh,
hear
you can't hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Environmental justice, because Black people of color are affected most by pollution. We're the ones with the cancer and the heart disease and the asthma, the high rates of asthma all over the country. And we're dying the most from pollution. That's another way they're killing us. They got their knees on our neck. That's another way they got their knee on our neck is by the pollution that they're dumping in our communities. And, like right here in LA, I'm in LA right now. Right here in LA, even though I'm a Jersey girl, very proud Jersey girl. Right here in LA, they have people living 200 feet away from oil drilling sites. I know a young lady who I met when she was a teenager. She would look out her window with people working in hazmat suits on. And it's like, well, where's my hazmat suit?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And she now is fighting cancer. I know but it's common. That is a thing, and it's not really being talked about. And that same pollution is what's causing climate change, but it's killing our people already now.
Right.
And so I go and I try to help raise money. I sing Mercy, Mercy Me because people don't even realize Marvin was on it 40 years ago. Mercy, Mercy Me. He's talking about the pollution that's happening and how it's, pretty much killing us. And so then I sing the Beatles, I'm sure did not have this in mind, but solar power is one of the solutions to getting that pollution out of our neighborhoods and giving us, the power and the energy to live. Because we all want to thrive and live and have all these wonderful things, but not have them also kill us. So I sing Here Comes the Sun. And so I usually do it back to back. I usually sing a cappella, Mercy, Mercy Me, so you can hear those words. Mm-hmm. And then I sing Here Comes the Sun to give people a little bit of hope on the after the harsh truth. And so that is one of the ways that I do. And then Hold It, Wait a Minute, because Hold It, Wait a Minute was about a relationship, because dude was doing me dirty and, Hold Up, Wait a Minute. But when I was singing it live, I would talk about all the Hold Up, Wait a Minute moments. And unfortunately, when it came out, it was like Mike Brown was Hold Up, Wait a Minute, and Trayvon Martin was Hold Up, Wait a Minute, and now George Floyd is Hold Up, Wait a Minute. And so those are the ways that I've used my art and I was a part of Shots Fired, which was a TV show that dealt with police brutality and actually cops murdering people. And so, I mean, I that's such an important part of my art to me.
Yeah. I want to continue on this question, but I want to add on to it is that specifically what's going on with now, but every time a social justice issue or any issues in a society is raised, there's always conversations around celebrities and musicians specifically on making a stance. And as we answer the question that was posed to Antonique is it necessary? Is it important? Is it a requirement for musicians to have a stance on social justice issues and to publicize that? What we're seeing now with everything that's going on is that some are doing it incredibly well and some are doing it incredibly wrong.
Right.
And so, DJ, like, what is your take on that? What is the responsibility of a musician when it comes to speaking out on social justice?
Man, I thought about this all night. I was praying to God you wasn't gonna ask me that question because I just heard myself giving all the wrong answers. But I feel like the only way to put it is, music is, like I said earlier, is free. You know what I'm saying? And And because music is allowed to be honest, then so are musicians. And if we all stand on opposite ends of the world and don't always agree with everything, you know, every individual has the power to make their own choices. And a lot of musicians, unfortunately, don't stand with us on the cause. And, you know, right now I'm in a space where I'm like, if you're not with us, then you're against us. Not that I'm saying that that's going to cause a violent reaction, but right now, I do feel like Black musicians specifically have an obligation to stand with their own. Even if you don't agree with all of the specific details, if we all have the same end goal in mind, right, we should stand together, because whether you believe in all of the little nuances and things that each individual Black person is doing to try to, you know, get change to take place, whether you agree with it or not, you're still Black. You are still also African American, and you didn't choose it. You know what I'm saying? This life chose us. God chose us. And despite our differences, I do think that if you're African American or Black of any sort on any continent, like, this is the time where we all got to stand together. And if we can do it through music, that'd be awesome. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, man, people do have their own opinions. And I've gone back and forth with guys I consider brothers over the last few days, and noticing a lot of the things that we see differently, you know, being Black men. And sometimes we can allow those conversations to divide us, because pride will get in the way. But if we think about just how freeing music is, there's really not a lot of places in the world where we can be expressive and free as Black men and really be honest. You know what I'm saying? And I had a conversation yesterday, and I'll even ask you guys, like, is there any place in life where a Black man is allowed to be angry outside of his music? It's like, I can't think of any scenario where I've ever felt like I was in a safe space to be angry about anything. Because if I'm angry, I'm the angry Black man. If I'm angry at how much I'm getting paid for this job, I'm an angry Black man. If I didn't get this opportunity, or, you know what I'm saying, anything that I struggle with in life, if I feel like I'm unloved in a situation, when I'm angry, I got to be told to calm down. And a lot of times I think our music is just where we release that emotion freely. As long as it's got a good beat and a good vibe to it, then people let you say whatever.
Right.
You know, and so you got to let musicians be honest, man, honestly. You know?
Yeah. I feel like you said a lot in that conversation. I think there's also something about the dialogue between two Black people in general. Like, my experience as a Black man can be different than DJ's experience as a Black man. It can be different through Chris's experience as a Black man. And although there are different experiences outside of our culture and our race, right, we are still Black men. And I think that's important for everyone to know. And it's interesting, the question of what are the safe spaces to be angry and not be seen as like I'm an aggressor because I'm having a feeling that everyone else is okay to have.
Right.
Chris,
yeah, true.
Chris, you sort of at Columbia. I'm going to share a fact, and if it's wrong, it's Sierra's fault. But just, you know,
oh Lord.
But curator, when it comes to Black Music Month at Columbia, you do a lot of work on that. Is that not true?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think right now we're seeing kind of like this wave of consciousness over the music industry, specifically labels. So I think it's an exciting time to do it right now. But like in the past, it's like something that I think I would try to make sure we reel in every Black History Month, every Black Music Month. Are we doing ads? You know, are we connecting with people through programming? What exactly are we doing to let people know that, you know, Black music is everything, like I said before, you know? And which when you get into all those different points, it can get, you know, a little difficult with having like, you know, majority of your executives be white, or, you know, having certain loopholes through HR that you can and you can't do. But like I said, I think that, you know, this new wave of consciousness that's coming over people, I've had so many conversations over the past 2 days that, you know, people are calling me like, hey, what do you think that we should do for Black Music Month in this period in time? Like, you know, so I think, you know, it will continue to progress, but I think that doesn't mean we should let up.
Yeah, it's that is interesting, because it is right now. It's for lack of a better phrase, right, on trend sort of, and we're in Black Music Month with everything going on, like everyone's sort of really turning their focus onto the Black community. And we talk about Black Music Month, we're celebrating it, but then also with everything that's going on with George Floyd and the protests, it's how can I support? And I'm wondering, taking us onto another road is, as Black people in the industry, how are you all protecting your mental health and wellness? And Erika, I want to start with you.
Honestly, I think it's been a combination of things. I don't think there's one approach. It's a lot of conversations with like-minded and just with my my loved ones and your tribe. And to be honest, I was telling somebody the other day, I slept the best I've slept in a very long time this past Sunday. And I really attribute it to watching Versus I watched it twice. Watching the Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond Versus twice, and then watching the episode of Insecure. And the two of those things together just kind of soothed my soul and gave me a chance to take all the things that have been weighing on me so heavy, just take it off my mind, even for a brief moment. And I slept, I really slept, and I hadn't slept like that many hours in weeks, months, I don't know when. And I really think sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we just have to turn off the television and we have to stop having the conversations that we're having just to recharge. And can I also I want to address what DJ said about spaces where you're angry, because I think, can totally, I know you were talking about it from the perspective of Black men, but can totally relate from the perspective of, Black women. And I think in a workspace, there's the added element of sometimes you're not even angry. You're just making a point, and you still get the label of the angry Black woman.
You still get it.
Yeah. And it's just like, I'm just making a point. And the fact that my point is clear, and the fact that my point is I have passion behind it, or it's just the truth and you don't want to hear the truth, that sometimes can be misread or labeled as an angry Black woman. And I think what's interesting about this time is, one, I'm finding that a lot of people in my circles are no longer going to put the filter on. Time's up with the filter. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to say it to you directly, and you have to decide how you want to receive it, versus me trying to coddle my words to protect 100%. Your feelings. Right. And then at the other side of that, I'm finding that there are allies who are recognizing that something was wrong and they couldn't speak up before it now, but now they feel like I can at least say, I recognize something is wrong. I don't know how to fix it. Right. I will try to do the work I need to do, but I at least recognize something is wrong. And that is very different from previous time, previous things. And with all these companies that are putting all these statements out right now, I posted the other day about it, at a certain point, you started wondering about, is this genuine? Yeah. Right. And you start wondering about, okay, but do your Black employees feel that you understand what you're saying? Right. Do your Black employees feel as supported as you say that you are supporting Black Lives Matter? Right. Does your executive ranks look like you support Black people? So this is just, the other thing I've been saying, 2020 has been cleaning out people's closets. And this is just another example of what's happening this year. And I'm really hopeful about what that means for the future.
So I know it's been everyone, Erika, thank you. That was good. You shared a lot of what we all wanted to say and been saying it. And I've been reading, there's been a saying, sort of, we're all like, throw 2020 away, it's garbage, we don't want this. And I was reading today that someone said, actually 2020 is the year that we need.
I saw that too.
Because to your point, it's cleaning out a lot of closets, and stuff has to sort of get worse before it gets better. But in the workplace specifically, it's an added battle. And something that I shared internally this week was that as Black people, we're taught to hide our trauma and to hide our anger and to hide our feelings, because to protect those who are not Black, because they might be uncomfortable. And Erika, to what you're saying is that we're tired of protecting those who aren't on our side. And I appreciate you mentioning the space for allies as well, but it has to come from a space of self-reflecting, and you have to want to change yourself to be on our side. And as we talk about the space of being in the business and being in, sort of in the corporate space, Chris, from your experience, just being a part of a larger label, how do you bring your whole self to work?
I think, I think sometimes it's hard because I think, I try to bring myself to work in good spirits and also like raising awareness for, Black people, what we go through. But I think sometimes the weight of everything that goes on in society, and then, just being a Black man in general and going in and trying to save face, right? Because I think, we can talk about in the urban music space to where it's like, a lot of times we're out with artists in the studio and we act one way because, I know how to appeal to my young R&B female artist or my young Black rapper or whatever. And it's like, we can have those conversations and we can connect with them on a different level. And sometimes it can get dangerous being in a club or being outside rolling loud. But we know how to act in these elements, right? And then it's like you're expected to have to do all of that, connect with Black people and Black culture in a different way, but then also go into work and save face and be able to get in these boardrooms and run a meeting as best as, a white director or like, somebody of non-color, which is like, we got to just sometimes sit back and just really look at the scope of like what urban music means and how like a young Black executive can also walk into a label or walk into Live Nation or walk into some of these corporate companies, have a voice and not have to be so I have to put on my white voice per se today, because it's like, yeah, we have to speak like that in a meeting, but on a song it's fine. When we're talking to our artists, it's fine. When we're in the streets, it's fine. This is what's really driving the culture and driving the money and driving these streams up and making money. So it's like, I think, white corporate America, especially in music and culture, needs to be a little bit more just accepting of our culture in and out the boardroom sometimes.
Right. Specifically if we're in spaces where you're capitalizing off of it
exactly.
You can't capitalize off the music and then not accept the person who's creating it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That doesn't make any
exactly.
sense. And essentially what you're saying, Chris, is really around like the code switching. And I don't know if
100%.
We know, and for our audience, like, I don't know if anyone ever puts the word code switching and exhaustion together, but it can often be exhausting to have to code switch. It's another thought process on top of your own when you're in these different spaces. And I don't know, DJ, if you, in sort of being a curator and a creator of music, if you share those same sentiments.
Yeah, I think for me, I started to gauge those situations a little bit more when I started working on music for TV and film. You do start to feel like you have to become something else in order to sell yourself, which is terrible because the email said that we want something raw and edgy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I walk into the room with that raw, edgy New Jersey, feel me? And then they like, pipe it down. It's a lot. We want it in the song, but we don't want it in the room. And so
exactly.
It's upsetting because I would like to believe that as somebody who's, training right now, looking to get into acting, that I could be myself. I understand as an entertainer, you are, your major role is honestly to serve. Entertainers are the biggest servants on earth. That is the purpose that we have all been given, no matter what you believe. We serve the people. Everything we're doing in entertainment is to give back to somebody who is being entertained by our craft. And so I would like to believe that outside of having to become something for the sake of entertainment, that we could be ourselves and not have to keep up that charade when the curtains are closed and the stage lights go off. Like, are you allowed to truly be yourself? And these meetings and these boardrooms and the people who make the final decisions, I do believe that they should allow us to be ourselves. And sometimes it's corny that we don't. And I think that it's left a mark in a lot of young Black people's minds that they're not enough, you know, which has created a humongous insecurity in Black people, which I think is the reason why we go so overboard with a lot of things. So yeah, man, it's saddening, but I'm hopeful that as these conversations continue, and shoot, 2020 is probably what we needed, because I'm sure a lot of people are waking up right now like, man, I don't have to move how you say move anymore.
Right.
You know, and that's really what we want, just to be free and be ourselves.
Yeah.
I think, can I just add something real quick? I think DJ is like right on point with what he was saying. And I think for the young people, sometimes it's important to recognize that every room is not going to welcome you with open arms, but that's okay. You know, you're in the room, you serve a purpose in the room. There may be something that, my mother told me this once, there may be something God wants you to get out of that room, but then you keep it moving. And sometimes the people that you are finding are the least supportive of you, for them, that room is their final destination. That's their goal. That's where they were trying to get to. So they're going to hold on to every little piece of that room as hard as they can. But for you, you recognize that that room is just on your journey because your goal is something far greater. Yeah. And you have to remember that, because to your point, like sometimes as Black people, we get extra offended, or, you know, we can get disrespected very quickly. And then we go left and we may miss that, you know what, I'm not actually supposed to be here that long. So let me get what I need to get and let me keep it moving so that I can continue to have my eye on what the greater prize is and greater goal is. And recognize it's okay if you don't like what I'm saying, because it's okay that this is your goal. Yeah. But my goal is something different. And I just want the young people to recognize, like, you're gonna hit some walls, and it's okay. But just don't forget that that's not your end goal. And if it is your end goal, then you have to figure out, you know, you need to reevaluate the situation differently. But my guess is, if you are really not feeling like supported and you're not feeling like these are my people, then you're not in the right place, and you're not in the right end goal. Right.
And it's also something that I've been thinking about recently, but always, is that we talk about trailblazers, and we think about those who have come before us and who will come after us. And Erika, as you talk about you being in this room and hitting those walls, and something that sort of keeps me sane or empowers me is that there will be some that come after me, and I want this room to be more comfortable, or to the road to be easier. And that's sort of what allows me to keep pushing and pushing. I'm wondering, and Antonique, starting with you, like, who were the trailblazers before you who you were like, thank you for what you've done, because now I'm able to be who I am and to succeed in this culture and community?
Somebody I mean, one of my really biggest influences, two of them are Aretha and Whitney, because singing is like, that was my first love. I do a couple other things, but that was where it started. As a little girl, I heard Whitney's voice in particular and was just like, oh, I want to do that. However she's doing that, that's what I want. I want to sound like that. And I just kept singing to her until I could sing a little bit. And so she shaped, you know, how I sing. And so did Aretha. And the fact that I studied Aretha in a different way than Whitney, because Aretha did every genre, like all of them, from like opera. She did all of them, and she made them hers. And so for me, the ability to just be who I am and affect other things, like put myself into other things and make it mine. I just always really, really appreciated that about her. And she stood for things, like she spoke up on issues in her music. And so she was a big trailblazer for me, for sure.
DJ, do you have any trailblazers that you look to?
So Jamie Foxx, to me, he's my favorite entertainer. Like,
yeah, he's amazing. Jeez.
Huh?
He's amazing. I think he's one of the most.
No. Like, my favorite person, and haven't had a chance to meet him yet, but between Jamie Foxx, some people disagree, but Kanye West and Sean Combs, Puffy, Diddy, like these three guys, I would say are the reason that I move how I move in life. I was blessed enough to have a father who, you know, has taught me how to be a man and navigate responsibilities, and he instilled, you know, the love of God in me and stuff like that. But as far as people who made me get up and be like, yo, I'm gonna go to the other side of the world and just give it my all in these different areas, you know, in the craft. And I just feel like, man, Diddy, I want to inspire people on this earth the way that Diddy inspires people. It's actually unreal the way that he inspires people. The man could sell you a wet, dirty sock that he just took off his foot, and you would buy it. And I don't know what it is. It's just a gift that he's been given, that he just can connect with people, and his heart for people is just insane. And then, you know, I want to believe in myself the way Kanye West believes in himself. You know what I'm saying?
Right there.
Yeah, because like I said, man, you know, I do feel like a lot of young, you know, Black musicians specifically, we struggle with insecurities, you know, and something I've always admired about him, even though he can go off the cuff sometimes, and you know what I'm saying, he believes in his cause. He believes in what he's doing at the time and what he's bringing forth to the world. And you can't be mad at somebody who just is standing 10 toes down on what they want to do. And then Jamie Foxx, to me, is the most talented person in entertainment, from singing to acting to comedy. Yeah. I haven't seen anybody else bring it to us in that way. And I've always said to myself, man, if I'm going to go for it, I want to go for it like that. I want to be another individual that people can say, wow, he's great at this, but he's also great at this. And you know what I'm saying? Just these guys, man, those are the pictures I put in my house. I'm like, those are my influences, man. The GOATs.
And I don't think I don't know if I've ever been in a space where someone spoke about Jamie Foxx and like that. It makes me want to go and just dive in deep to
everything. Everything. I've seen every interview, every song, every show. Yeah, he's talented, man.
He's a guy. He's nice in person too. He's nice. So when you meet him, DJ, he's nice. You're gonna meet him.
I'm glad that we moved into this space where we're sort of really trying to educate and advise the next generation of Black industry leaders. And for our audience members who are on the call, I know that that's something that they're earning to get out of this conversation. And so for Erika and Chris, I'm wondering, can we speak sort of honestly about obstacles that we've had to overcome as Black people in the industry, and how we overcame them? And Chris, we can start with you if you care to share.
Yeah, I mean, obstacles in the industry. I think it's a lot, right? Because I think we're still not on the same, we're not on the level playing field as, you know, other people in the industry. Like I said, like, you know, I think we all kind of mentioned this earlier, compared to like the output of Black music and what it's doing against the people that are actually in these spaces and in these meetings is crazy, right? But I think just any advice is just to like keep pressing and remember what you're here for. I remember when I started interning at radio, and then I, you know, needed a job in New York. So I just continued to cold call stations in New York to get a job, got a job, met people at labels, thought I was doing the right thing to get to a label and to work in music. And then I started interviewing. And then the first interview I walked in, literally, they told me, hey, you know, this is not an urban job. You know, this is a pop job. And at that point, it's like, I kind of lost my focus, but at the end of the interview, they were like, wow, you actually might be too good for this, which led me to like, you know, me actually, at first, I think I just wanted to work in music, whether it was pop, whatever. I just wanted to get my feet in the door. And after that, I was like, no, I actually want to work in Black music. I want to put on urban acts. I want to, you know, market this correctly to Black people, and also open doors for other people that, you know, want to get their foot in the industry, and, you know, just kind of like be a light, and, you know, just be able to share my testimony and let people know, especially young people of color, that you will come into, you know, a lot of friction, you know, a lot of hurdles, etc. But I think it's just like, you got to remember, I think Erika was saying this earlier, it's like, yo, we have a few stops. You might look around and be like, yo, I'm not comfortable here, but you got to remember your end goal, and you got to remember, like, you know, what you're in it for, and everything that you can really incite to make beautiful, you know?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Erika, do you have an obstacle that you can share with us?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny. Since you were talking about age earlier, I think I'm a little older than most people on this call. But the thing that I miss from being young was the things that I just didn't know that I didn't know. And so because I didn't have that, there was a fearlessness that came with it. And when I didn't recognize or expect there was an obstacle, I just kept it moving. And then I'd look back and be like, wow, were they trying to hate on me? Or wow, was that really, you know, I was so like clueless about it. I was, just kind of focused on doing me and what I was trying to get to. It didn't bother me. And sometimes now in life, I wish I had that fearlessness that I had in my 20s, right? And so I think, you know, as you proceed, you know, as you grow in your career, yes, there are obstacles, and sometimes those obstacles are, you know, systemic racism, you know, just plain out, you know what I mean? Sometimes those obstacles are, you know, as a Black woman, you know, having to prove yourself to get the promotion that your counterpart got the promotion based on his potential, right? So there are those obstacles that are very clear, but then there are also obstacles that I just put on myself, right? I got to a point in my career where I didn't trust my gut the way I trusted it before. And so then I hesitated or I stutter stepped instead of just doing what my initial gut reaction was and told me to go this way. So I don't look at all obstacles being outside of myself. I think that there are many obstacles that I placed on myself that now I have to call it what it is and put a name on it so that I can let it go and keep it moving.
That's good.
Yeah. DJ Antonique, I don't know if you all have any that you want to share. Erika, I feel like that is great.
I do. So I'm independent. I went independent. I had taken some meetings with major labels, and I had people say I sing too good, or it needs to be more this or more that, and generally what they would consider more urban. And I always found it so frustrating. So I told you, I grew up on Whitney and Aretha, and like, so my voice, you know, I like to sing, I like to hold the notes and do the, you know, the big vocals, the big voice divas. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why that wasn't considered something that as a Black person that I could do. But Adele can sing those songs. Sam Smith can sing those songs. Justin Timberlake can sing those songs. Ariana Grande can sing those songs. Christina Aguilera can sing those songs. And so I was so frustrated by it. And I just couldn't understand why, you know, they were allowed to sing the same, like literally our music, our songs, and we weren't allowed to do it. And so at some point it was just like, okay, well, let's just go do this ourselves. And so that's why I ended up putting out my stuff independently. So also, guys listening, you know, major labels aren't the end all be all, especially now with social media and ways to build your audience outside of that system. Honestly, to get signed these days, it sounds like you gotta already have built it anyway. So you might as well just keep all the proceeds. But not to bash the major labels, but that was the experience that I had. And it was so heartbreaking because I just couldn't figure out why that rule was there, you know?
Go ahead, DJ.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's interesting because I don't know how to take us in this direction, so I'm gonna try, and then I'm gonna pray that y'all got my back. So the necessity for urban spaces, right? With a lot of these major labels have urban departments that are, what I've seen, ran by Black people and are majority staffed by Black people. And it's interesting that you bring that point up and think about like Adele and Christina are singing our songs, but they live under the pop genre and are being successful, and then are part of teams that are ran by non-Black people or by Black people and being successful. So I'm wondering, as I try to piece together a question, do you feel like these urban spaces are urban departments under labels are here to stay? Do you feel like they'll phase out once sort of justice and equality happens and begins to be true?
They can't survive. They can't survive without us. What you talking about?
Yeah.
They can't survive without the urban,
no.
side. It can't die out. It's impossible, man. Hip hop is the #1 genre in the world. How can you phase out your urban division? You'll go broke. They can't do this without us.
What I think should happen though is because those were the urban departments that were telling me that I needed to be a certain way and that I couldn't sing a certain type of music. And I don't think it was literally those people really believe that. It's they have bosses and they have people above them, people who are made feel like they're not allowed to sign certain things or they can't do certain things or certain things aren't going to go in this building. And it's all really political battles going on in there. And so, yeah, no, I don't believe our departments will be phased out. But what I hope will happen
that they stop trying to tell us how to be us. How you gonna tell us how to be us?
Mic drop.
I don't understand how I can get an email and y'all tell me that y'all want the Migos vibe and y'all want this vibe and that vibe to open up this film, and then when I give you that, because I was raised in that culture, so I know how it's supposed to hit. How you tell me, we want to sound more so like this Justin Bieber record that came out last week, because that's gonna go. I'd be like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like you know who's running the urban divisions, and unfortunately, in a lot of cases, it's not us. It's not us running our own divisions.
Right.
And if it is us running our own divisions, they kind of use us as like a decoy, because it's like she said, it's still somebody above that person who's actually making the call.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just really sad that they don't allow us to be us, but yet you need us to make the. Listen, we was keeping it positive. Let's stay there.
That's good. Though. They have to let us be us.
Yeah, man. Let us be us.
Tell us how to be us. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. And I also feel like there's a culmination of things too, right? I think we're speaking about the politics, and I think sometimes there is a traumatic effect on a young Black executive who is in these spaces and who is working with, certain white people are saying, oh, you got to do this, or we should do this, or we need to be more like this. And they're just looking at the top Black person in the industry on top of the charts, et cetera, right? And I think, it becomes a time where it's like, okay, now is a great time for our young Black executives to stand up and kind of like voice, hey, this is actually really what we need to be doing right now. But at the end of the day, we all here for what? For a paycheck. So it's like sometimes it's like, do you want to eat? You want to pay your rent right now, or do you want to go head to head with the GM or the CEO of the company on who you think should be on a remix? Because you 100% know I'm in these streets, I'm in the culture, I know what's going on. But like like I said, at the end of the day, it is a job. And I think, as young Black executives, we should task ourselves with we need to be as honest as possible on how we're making money off of our culture. But, it has to be a unified awareness across everybody, and also has to take certain white people stepping up to voice a lot of these things too, because their voice will weigh a little bit more than ours in the eyes of another white person, if that makes sense.
I think we still gotta we still have to have an end goal. I'm not upset at any Black executive, young Black executive who's trying to figure it out. It is a job, and you're getting paid to do your job. And so it's not so much, but I think that some people stop there. They're like, well, it's a job, so let me do my job, and I'll just do what they're asking me to do, and I'll leave it there. We're not telling you not to do your job, but if you can't affect change on the job, then when you clock out, what are you doing?
That's real.
Right. Is there another goal in mind? Are you still thinking about us when you have to leave what you have to do?
Mm-hmm.
I got to do jobs too. You think I want to play for everybody that I play for and travel with, or create this theme song that I was told it has to be this way? But when that job is done, what else am I doing to help further my culture, to bring awareness to what we're going through as a people, or to create opportunities and jobs for other young cats like myself?
Yeah.
So we can't make that. We just can't have that excuse on our backs. It's just a job.
Right. 100%. And I think it's all, relative to the person as well. I know, my goal is to make sure, like I said, that, Black music is marketed and we're making money off of it, but how are we messaging it? How are we putting it in culture correctly? But is that everybody? Some people, it might just be a job for them, but it does take, the few that are shepherds of the culture to really make sure we're getting the point across,
Yeah, and there's a bit in there. There's a bit of frustration too. Like DJ, I know you're saying like if you can't do it while you're in 9 to 5, what are you doing from 6 to whatever time we're going to bed these days? But it's hard to look at a Black executive, at least for me, and know that someone is in the system and that sort of the response is like, I'm here to collect a paycheck, right? It's like they're.
But I know what they're going through. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's easier for someone who hasn't come in contact with their job specifically or been in that position. You know, once you see how like she said, the knee is still on their neck in the job situation,
100%.
then you take a little more pressure off of them. I think we put a lot of pressure on Black people who we think have power without asking them what's really going on in your space. So we attack each other because there really are some Black people who may not have found a solution yet and they feel hopeless. They feel like every time they've tried, they get shot down. And that's where we all kind of have to come together and be like, all right, as long as you can look me in the eye and tell me you've been trying, then I'm You know what I'm saying? Just don't tell me you gave up on me, bro. Like, don't tell me that, well, it's the labels is going to be the labels. Don't give me that excuse. Tell me what kind of conversations you've been having this week that may help us progress in the future.
Something my mother, some wisdom she imparted on me as a very young child, I have never taken, I don't listen to, is that when you get into these corporate spaces or when you even are just among people who are not like-minded like you or who do not look like you, you don't have to show up to every fight you're invited to. Again, I don't listen. I'm fighting every battle. But it's a piece of advice that I think is very true. Like Erika, goes back to your point, like recognizing why you're in that room and what is in your power to actually change. And you don't have to show up to every fight is not going to be your fight. And as long as and DJ, you were saying this too, as long as you're staying true to who you are and you're trying, that's really all we can really ask for. We're over time, y'all. and so I want to be respectful of that, but this could be a 3-day conference. I want to close this out, and this has just been such a great conversation, and I'm very honored to have had it with you all. It's been therapeutic for me as your moderator to have it, so I appreciate you all curating this space. I think how we want to close it out is just advice to our young Black audience members, even our allies too, is how can, with the power that we currently have, with whatever situation, whatever job we are, how can we use that power to affect change? Whether you want to speak from your own perspective and how you're doing it, or you want to give advice on how to do it, it's up to you. But I think that's how I'd like to close it out. Antonique, I'd like to start with you.
I think it's so important. Strangely enough, Celine Dion told me years ago, don't ever let anybody change you. And that always stuck with me. And so I would say for listening, don't let anybody change you. Be so proud of who you are. And for the allies, listen to us. Like the term, angry Black man, angry Black woman, like now you're seeing, I think the people out there, the white people marching with us can see we had a reason to be angry all these years. And so, just listen to us, in the boardrooms and in the offices, like hear what the issues are and step up, like speak on our behalf and help us make change. I think the allies, and especially right now, are going to be super important. Allies, we thank you.
DJ.
Love, man. Doing everything, leading with love. Like I said earlier, man, I believe we're all here to serve. And I think that sometimes the word power, we get lost in the word power. But the most powerful thing on this earth is love at the end of the day. And if we're leading with love, then I think that that's where real change starts to take place, is to be able to connect with the heart and get in a little deeper. Listening. to each other.
Yeah.
Same race, opposite, different races. It's just gonna come down to listening and serving. I don't know how else to say it. How can I serve you today? And if everybody has that attitude, this allows you to understand the person that you're trying to connect with. I think that actors, Antonique has the ability to really understand people in a different way because actors are obligated to observe for their craft. So they're very empathetic. They know how to tap into the emotions of other individuals. Mm-hmm. And I admire that. And so now it's a space I'm trying to learn how to curate and just, this person just upset me today, but let's play a role. Let's see how I would feel if I was them today. How did I wake up today? What other things am I dealing with in my life? And if I take a second to do that, and I don't let the jersey kind of come out when when I say what I want to say, sometimes I get a little further than I might have gotten with a different approach. So, yeah.
That's good.
Chris?
I think for me, I kind of been tasking people and just like even myself, like, what are you doing in your everyday that, can help the overall goal and narrative? Like, are you, who are you hiring? When you're working with certain businesses, like, what does your team look like? Do you have Black people on your team? Are you really vocalizing and, showing everybody what Black culture is actually looking like when you're in a meeting and when you're talking to other people? I think, like I said, it has to be an everyday thing. So it gets into the system of you're just naturally doing the right thing and you're just naturally speaking up. You're just naturally hiring Black people that normally wouldn't get the job. When you look at interns, do we have people from HBCUs, lower income communities, and people in the South that might not be able to get to LA or New York? So just things like that, I think we have to like always keep in mind,
It's good.
Yeah, for real.
Erika?
I think it's important to recognize that you can do something. And I think during this time, especially with COVID, everything has been level set. Everybody's at home, everybody's creating from home. And this is the time to look at what you have and figure out what can you do with what you have. Innovation is of the utmost importance right now. And I think activism comes about in many different ways. And to me, I get the most excitement out of looking at something that's been one way and figuring out how can I do it differently, or how can I use these skill sets to go this way. And every single person listening to this, or tuned into this conversation, I think power is one word, but powerful is another word. And every single person in here is powerful. And so I encourage everyone to find your own way to be an activist and recognize everyone doesn't have to be on the front line. Everyone doesn't have to speak up. Everyone doesn't have to post, but there's other ways that you can do it. And just I'd like to point out, just as an example, Grits and Biscuits is a DJ event that, it's a party. But when COVID happened and we couldn't do any more parties, we said, well, what can we do? And we took, the money that we were going to put towards celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we found the right partners, and we launched what we call it, and I invite everyone to check it out, the Kin Folks Fund. And it's just a fund. Literally, you can go to gritsandbiscuits.com and you can nominate somebody that who's been directly affected by COVID, and you can request a monetary gift up to $500, and we've been sending out gift cards. And so literally, it's a party. But what we did was we created a fund to support our people because they've supported us for the past 10 years. And we've given, 5 figures in a month's time because we know that we need it. You know what I mean? And we didn't want it to be that you could nominate yourself. We really wanted it for you to have to nominate somebody else. And so every single person out here is powerful and can be innovative in a way that can help somebody else. And that's the only way we're going to get through this.
That's awesome.
Come on, Grit.
Yeah.
Come on, Grit. Biscuits.
What do y'all want me to say now?
You all are beautiful. This has been an amazing.
This has been awesome.
This is great.
I'm gonna sleep good tonight too.
Everybody was amazing.
Oh my God.
This has been awesome.
You all are truly amazing in and outside this conversation. The work that you all are doing for Black music, for Black culture, I am truly grateful for, and I think that our audience members are as well. And I applaud and am grateful for your honesty and transparency in this conversation. We spoke about so many different things, and I think those who are Black or who are allies or who are a part of our community received something today, and can take something back with them. And you are truly encouraging our next generation of Black leaders, whether they're in the industry or not. And I think that it's us, right? It's us who have worked really hard to be in the positions that we are, to continue to trailblaze and continue to create change and educate those to come after us, so that they just have a little bit of an easier time than we did. So I applaud the work that you all are doing, and thank you for being here. Don't be surprised if I put a part 2 on your calendars.
That would be great. I'll be there. Thanks, everybody.
So good.
Please stay safe.
Thank you, DeMarco.
Well,
what are some spaces now that the industry is ready for us, that youth and young professionals who are looking to get into the industry can sort of be in networking or resources that they can use to sort of be able to build their tool belt to be ready for the interview and be ready to be into the industry?
I think, as far as spaces, I think you got to zone into what exactly you want to do, where you want to go, and go from there. Because spaces could be literally anything from this, this Zoom, this panel, to, maybe there might be, something that your local radio station is doing, or something that, one of your local concert halls is doing, that you can, start to, work with your immediate community. And then start to build your relationships from there. Because I always say, if you can't make it, where you're from, and can't find a way to at least do something there, then, that's the first step. You might not have the capacity to get to the next level, because obviously when you get to like entertainment mecca like New York or in LA, you can go to mixers, right? You can go to networking events. You can go to saying that to say all of those are very easy to come by, but it's like for people that are in college, or for people that don't have that access ASAP, it's just like, how, what are the spaces and what are the ways that they can get to it? And I think it's just like, like I said, local radio stations, trying to, any concerts, any volunteer activity you can do at festivals. Those are kind of like the first entry spaces, I think.
Erika, do you have any additional ones?
I would agree. I mean, I agree with what Chris is saying. I mean, we've had people, I remember I had a young lady who was in college who drove 4 hours to volunteer to take pictures at a Grits and Biscuits party, and just sit in the green room and like talk to us and like pick our brains. And, like, I remember that, you know what I mean? Yeah. And hopefully she got something out of that and she learned. So I think the hustle is important. I mean, when I was in college, I did college radio, and I wrote letters to labels and asked if they needed college reps. And, so I think in this industry, the hustle is important. But I also want to say, like, for the women, you are going to encounter people that are going to try to take advantage of you in some form or fashion that is not right. And you have to trust your gut to know that every opportunity is not the right opportunity. Right. And so if you have to turn one down to stick to your morals and what you believe in, then you have to turn one down, because there'll be another door, another opportunity down the road. It's not the only one, regardless of what they say. Wow. And so as these young women are starting in this industry, like, protect yourself, and you can get a vibe from somebody. Like, surround yourself, create your crew, create your tribe of men and women who are good people, so y'all can help each other with opportunities. And when somebody encounters somebody that steps out of line, I remember I had that once. A guy said some reckless stuff to me, and I called my crew from school, who were all in the same industry, and was like, I'm on my way to your house. I got to tell you what happened. And when I walked in the door, the guys were like, where do we need to go? Yeah. What just happened? You know what I mean? So sometimes you got to just know, you have to make sure that you choose your circles wisely, and you've got a tribe of people. You're all coming up in this game at the same time, and you're good people, and you're going to make sure each one of you make it up the ladder. May not all be at the same time, but you all are going to get up there.
Yeah, and being sure to reach back and see who's behind you and how you can lend a hand back there. Antonique, do you have anything to add? Resources?
Oh, everything they're saying is amazing.
Yeah.
Hustle is everything. I completely agree with Erika on that. Putting yourself out there, just because you never know who could or is willing to help. You know, sometimes you see a person, and people have done it with me. You know, I've had people who at some point said something, but it was like, I was so afraid to say something to you. And it was like, well, shoot, I'm just a ball of love. So say something to me. And I try to help people as much as I can. You know, put yourself out there, hustle and think out of the box. Like, everything isn't a one-way thing. Like, there's not this one correct, you know, method or road or way to get any of this done. I mean, everybody's story is so different, you know? So think out of the box and just go for it. But it's mostly a belief in yourself that this is what you're passionate about. This is, nobody can tell you no. This is what you know, this is for you. Because that's how I was when I was a kid. I just knew that there was nothing else I ever wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So it didn't matter how many no's I got. I just kept at it. So along with that, you know, passion and perseverance, that hustle, just put yourself out there.
And I'll add to that also, like, because I've never been, which is not a good trait, but I've never been a long-term planner. That's just never been me. I know what I'm interested in right now.
Right.
And I try to move towards that. But I will say I have always talked about what I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. And I've had so many opportunities that I didn't even know existed on the planet come to me because somebody remembered that I talked about I mentioned to them, this is what I'm interested in. And then I get a phone call and somebody says, I got your name from so-and-so. Would you like to meet about this opportunity? So talk about what you want to do, because it may manifest into something else down the line.
I definitely want to echo that talk about. I think for the longest time I was like, you know, hey, I want to work at a label. I want to, do this. I want to, work with artists. And I never really, I think, when I started college, I never really told people because I thought it was like, oh, whatever, you're crazy. But as soon as I started vocalizing it, things started happening. Yeah. And now I think I'm definitely more than ever in a space where it's like, whatever it is, if I know I want to do it, I just start vocalizing and talking about it. Because like you said, Erika, you never know where that can take you, or you never know who you're talking to. They might be, oh, I know so-and-so who is connected with this that can help you with this. Yeah, so, 100% agree with that.
And talk about it with confidence, right? I think something I always hear is that, specifically in people of color, this is imposter syndrome. Like, you feel like you're not good enough, or that you don't know what you're doing. And if you're going to speak about it, be confident about it. And we talk about fake it till you make it. So that's a slippery slope, because you don't want to fake it too much and then make it, and then you don't know what you're doing. But
all humans, you're talking to another human being.
Right.
So, just like
you want to be confident, but you don't want to be obnoxious.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You want them to want to remember you and want to help you.
Right.
And recognize that some people aren't going to get it.
Right.
And they might try to tell you that's the dumbest idea on earth. But if you know that's what you want, just keep talking until you find the person who gets it.
That's true. Yeah.
I want to, as we begin to close this session, I want to ask, because we started this session last week, really just talking about Black music and culture, and that was the intent. And then everything started happening, and we got into it, and we were like, let's just talk about it all. Like, put it all. Let's just mention it all, right? I'm curious to know from you all, how do you feel Black music and Black culture will be affected by not only what's going on, the change in the industry, but also what's going on just in our world in general?
Wait, what was the beginning of the question?
How do you feel Black music and Black culture will be affected by what's going on in our world today?
I can jump in and just say, I think right now I'm seeing positive things. And I know we continue to talk about, who's doing things just for the moment, just to make sure that it's not a trend and that it's long lasting. I think as long as we kind of like are continuing to uphold that and holding people accountable, I think that, Black culture can really benefit from this, because people won't, start to only segregate, I should say, us into, certain lanes and certain spaces, and really be aware. So hopefully, this definitely will be something that, can stand the test of time, and, really, it feels like a revolution, honestly.
It does.
It's a good word.
Yeah, that is a good word. I love it. I've actually been, I guess we all have been waiting for this moment and praying and hoping for this moment. And it is incredible that I really do believe it's here. I was telling somebody, like, I think change is really, I think it's really happening, guys. Like, it's really happening. But I think we're gonna see, as the door is open, as it seems like the door, like the world is now opening to us, and opportunities that we haven't had prior to, I believe we're going to start having those opportunities. So you're going to start seeing a lot more of us. You're going to start seeing a lot more variation. You'll see how, our level of creativity, because we're not going to be, like Chris was saying, in a box so much. Because we've had, obviously we've been able to do things over, time, but it's been like he said, segregated. It's been like, this is what we're going to allow you to do right here. This is what y'all are allowed to do. And I think now, that box is breaking, and what we're allowed to do. So the type of content you'll see, I'm hoping, with the reins off of us, in the box, broken. I think what you'll see is just different stories. Like even our, movies, our stories won't be like slave stories anymore. It'll be like, different stories. In our music, you'll hear us in different genres. Maybe it'll be more Black country artists, more Black rock and roll artists, more I don't know, more Black divas, more, let's get some more, let's get our Whitney Houstons and Aretha's back.
Well, now that everyone knows the root of all music is Black music, hopefully they can start to insert some of
yes,
other
exactly. Let us do what we created, man. Yes, that's how I feel too. And then I think the message in our music, I think it'll open up too. We'll be talking about different things, because unfortunately Black music has been a lot sexual. Everything is sexual, and everything is angry. And so we'll now be able to talk about different things in our music. It won't just be this one thing that they let us talk about.
Right.
And so I just think diversity within Black people is what is going to happen. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I'm most excited about. That whole, you keep hearing it more and more, but this idea of intersectionality. And so hopefully coming out of this, we see more of that. We value it. So it's not just observing like from a fishbowl, but like we actually understand and value it. I think there are going to be people who are against it and trying to fight it stronger than ever. And so we have to protect it, and we have to make sure that the people who hold the keys to it, really understand and value it for what it's worth. But it's, Black music and Black culture has never been able to be stifled. Even during slavery, like they were still singing, they were still
right.
You know what I mean? So
true.
It's never going to go anywhere. It's always going to be the soundtrack, as we talked about, of our lives. And somebody was telling me they were watching the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan doc. And after the fact, they were listening to the soundtrack for weeks, because the music played such a part in telling that story. And we're just going to continue. We're going to be the soundtrack to so many stories. And right now there's a new one being written, and we're going to be the soundtrack. And the next one that comes after it, we're going to be the next soundtrack. So I am always, excited to hear what we about to put out on the radio.
Hey,
love that. That's a good.
It's something that we mentioned earlier, and I'm curious. I don't know how to phrase the question, so y'all know how this goes. There's been so much there's been so much around like things being pulled up on Twitter from 5 years ago, and Antonique, you were sharing your story about blackface, and people are just like, where is sort of the space is there a space for forgiveness, right? If someone has said something 5, 12 years ago that was obviously racist or and prejudice, like, and now they're seeing sort of the consequences of it now, to you all, is that the right approach, or is there another alternative?
Like calling out folks?
Calling out folks, and then also sort of the companies getting behind it, like, we no longer working for you.
Yes. It's, I mean, and it's I guess it's also per instance, how, you know, how horrible the instance was, and the person's, you know, current view of it. Like the guy with the blackface, he wasn't sorry. He didn't think anything was wrong with it. He said, Wayne's my hero. I was just celebrating my hero. Yeah. So it was kind of like, not like a, this maybe wasn't the best way to celebrate my hero. I'm so sorry. It wasn't that. It was kind of like arrogant, like, what's wrong with that? And so that's the kind of people that you definitely you should separate from. I think companies should quickly, and they did swiftly. The article came out yesterday with the blackface, and today they put that in a statement. He's no longer affiliated with us. So I think that kind of swift change is definitely necessary within the companies, but it's definitely per instance, and it does matter what the person's current, you know, view of, you know, because people are, you know, sometimes you make a mistake. I do believe people sometimes make mistakes and they didn't see the error in their ways, because I'm human, and sometimes I don't see the error in my ways. And then somebody was like, you know, Antonique, you know, I think that was a little bit, you should have said that was a little rude. Okay, you know what? I didn't see it like that. I'm sorry. I did not mean to be rude. That was not my intent. So sometimes, you know, those kind of apologies are good, and then sometimes the person just needs to be, you know. So I think it's per whatever the instance is or instances. If it's instances, then
it's time to go.
Let them go.
I also feel like in the future, Twitter is gonna have a specific role that's just called detective, right?
Yes, they already got fact check.
That is
fact checking the president.
Twitter detectives are on it. Like, I just 5 years ago, you said this. How much scrolling did you do to get that out? Like, it's Twitter detective out here.
2011?
Yeah, it's 2011.
Somebody was scrolling for hours.
That needs to be a resume, like Twitter detective. That's it.
That's good. You might want to hit Twitter for that.
I was just gonna say, I also want to kind of bring up the point of education, I think, also, because I think it's like when we're talking about going back and tweets resurfacing, of course, all of the shit that a lot of these people were saying were wrong, but I think now more than ever, if people are still doing things like that, it's like, yo, you didn't even want to educate yourself to find out that it wasn't okay to say. Like, maybe a few years ago, you know, you're like, damn, like, you know, they probably didn't know the scope, you know, of what they were dealing with. They weren't educated, but like, it's like now, like I said earlier, there's a revolution happening. So if you don't see what's going on and you're not educating yourself on why this is not cool, then you have a problem, you know?
Yeah. And don't ask your black friends.
Yeah.
Jimmy
Educate
Fallon
yourself before you ask them. So
Jimmy Fallon did a whole thing.
Google. It's so funny. They did a whole little thing, a little skit. Of Jimmy Fallon tried to call one of his black people who work on his staff, and he was like, I'm sorry, I'm getting so many calls from my white friends. I'm so sorry. Like, you know, it's like, guys, just Google it.
Which honestly, you know, working for you know, a large company like that is how it was, right? And I think, you know, people continue to ask me like, yo, you know, what do I need to do? Like, how did my first thing was, you have to educate yourself. Because if you don't educate yourself, then you won't know the context of anything and why we've dealt with everything that we've dealt with so long, and why we might walk into work with a chip on our shoulders, or you know, with the extra weight, because, you know, somebody might have just, you know, we might have just encountered some microaggressions or something, you know? So I think just really, that's always my point, is to hone in, like, yo, you got to educate yourself. Don't, like, before we even have a conversation, did you read this or watch this? You know?
Here's your homework. Erika, I know that you're trying to get.
Then I'll answer your questions. Absolutely.
So sorry, I thought you were trying to say something before I close.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So we're over naturally. But
That's probably the best.
yes, it is great. I have truly enjoyed these conversations and look forward to it. There won't be a part 3, but stay tuned because it will probably recreate it at a later time. I want to close out on this. Sorry, let me slow down. One thing I want to add to the point that you were making, Chris and Antonique, is that you can't make decisions for your Black employees or about Black music, about Black cultures without Black voices in the room. And so if you're talking from the executive level and you're making decisions on how to address certain things, I think that it's imperative that you have Black voices and POC voices in the room, or else you're just sort of talking in a vacuum, which I think is something that I think companies are beginning to realize and recognize. But I feel like it's important to our audience members who are looking to be in these spaces, that is one of the reasons why you need to be in the room and why this issue affects you, because our voices need to be heard. I want to close out our session today just with 1 or 2 things that we are personally doing to either continue elevating Black voices or to begin to elevate Black voices more, because I know all of us on this panel are doing that currently. And Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, for me, honestly, this is kind of something I've always done, but I just always want to make sure in the narrative that I'm putting out there and any message that I'm conveying, I have people a part of it that come from that story, come from that the picture we're trying to paint, which is us, which is Black people. So it's like, if we're hiring a stylist or a director or something to tell a story that's about Black struggle, I'm just always going to make sure the room is Black, and not saying that I'm not trying to be diverse in hiring or how we're who I'm giving money to or who I'm working with, but I think it really starts with just working with Black people and making sure we're investing in Black businesses that can really shed light on how truthfully we're conveying our culture.
That's good, Anthony. I second that. Where you put your money is very important, because that's a complete way to speak. Spending with Black companies and Black businesses, that is definitely a must do. And I've also been mentoring mostly young Black women. I can't think of any young Black men that I'm mentoring, but I don't know, I think they need a brother. So I think I'll lead let the brothers handle them. But I definitely been mentoring quite a few young Black women, and then I try to support things like this, donating my own time to help further whatever is going to help us. Like I'm all about that, and then trying to bring awareness to on social media to other Black either artists or organizations, or it's so many different ways that we can help. And so I try to dibble and dabble in all of them, in all of those ways, where I spend my money, who I personally help, what organizations I lend my time to, and just bringing awareness to people, shouting people out and saying, oh, this is dope, about certain folks and things like that. So that echoes Chris a little bit, but those are the ways that I try.
Erika, close us out.
Yeah, I mean, I can echo what's been said as well. Contributing or spending time. I mean, I love doing these types of things.
Me
so
too.
This is always great, and I'm always happy to do it. I spend a lot of time just like helping people build out their ideas. I really enjoy it. I enjoy, showing you a different perspective, and hopefully a perspective that shows you the scale, like how much larger your idea could be. I do that a lot with, Black other entrepreneurs of color. I also have historically been the person who will have the uncomfortable conversations with leadership. on behalf of those who may not feel they have a voice. And sometimes it falls on deaf ears and sometimes it doesn't. But, you know, I was once given a review where it was that it seemed like I was more aligned to the people than the leadership at times. And my response was absolutely, because until the leadership shows that they care as much about the people, then I'm going to make sure they know where they're they're taking missteps perhaps. And sometimes I think it's just really, it's not malicious. It's just not having a broad enough perception of what's going on. So, you know, and then I think finally, like through Grits and Biscuits, it's a platform that we have, you know, that brings a lot of joy to a lot of people, and opportunities have come out of it for others. And, you know, the more that we can continue to support each other through it, you know, the more we'll continue to rock with it and try to bring it to life. Once we get through COVID, we're back.
Oh, that's real.
We'll be there. Thank you all so much for being here again.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. I appreciate you all donating your time to Music Forward and to sharing this. I know that this conversation is all on our minds, and we're in very heavy times. So I appreciate you all. I know that you've been discussing it in your own circles, but discussing it with us again. And I'm glad to have you all as a part of the Music Forward family. And to our audience, thank you all so much for showing up for this conversation and showing up every week for us at Music Forward. So with that being said, enjoy your days, enjoy your quarantine life.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll see you at
everybody. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.